Good morning. Never trust published bio. They're generally embellished. So don't fully trust the published bio. I'm very excited to be here this morning. Excited and slightly self-conscious. Excited because this is an NRB platform. I left Bangladesh as a teenager, where Bangladesh was a low-income country. I came back as a middle-aged man, perhaps in my midlife crisis, to a lower middle-income country 2 years ago. So there has been a lot of change in the last 20, 25 years. The reason I feel self-conscious, because I don't know how to tell you the Bangladesh story, things that you already know, or things that we all know. And we also tend to see this through our own lenses. Many of the, as NRB, we often look at our country of birth, often through rear view and often with sunglasses. Sunglasses because with the experience we inherited, we often forget that the system that's in place has a very complex logic to it. So any simplistic solution that we as NRB often come with may take time to change. Sitting in the back, as I was listening to Lutfi, I thought the Tom Friedman's, the dreams versus memories. I think we as NRB, or you as NRB, this is participating in Bangladesh. It's nothing, I would say there's nothing new. It has been going on for a long time. Almost 1100 years ago, you have heard of Otish Dipankar, right? He was an ex-NRB who studied 12 years in Sumatra, learned not only Buddhist lessons, but also brought back, you may already know or may not know, the modern agricultural tools, irrigation at that time. Jagadish Chandra Bosu was an NRB. Even if you look at the social innovations in 1970s, 1980s, many of them, the NRBs, ex-NRBs participated heavily. And even in the last 5-10 years, a lot of the NRBs have come back to participate and also participated from distance. What I would say to my NRB friends, please don't get involved as a charity. Okay, because charity can warm your heart, but it does not change the system. Do it out of self-interest. If it warms your heart, well and good. And what we need to, those of us who are in Bangladesh, we need to keep in mind, this participation, this platform, is very much like a chain, is as strong as its weakest links. And we have to be very aware of that. I came back, I flew in yesterday. At the airport, there was a huge traffic. A lot of people were stuck. And the question that came to me, we have not done a good job in taking care of the NRBs, not the ones who are here. I think some of the NRBs who are here, you probably bypass a lot of the main immigration channel. But I mean, look, we are relying on the remittance sent by the NRBs, but just look at the way people struggle to fill out their forms when they're living in Bangladesh, okay? So let's look at it as a group effort. Let's look at it as a sort of common social responsibility. Let's move to the economics side. What I will do is I will take a long view of our economic transitions, and then I will, looking ahead, what are the key things that we need to be mindful of as we move ahead. And I have to apologize, it will be quite a bit of, so let's wait till it comes out. So the way I will present, I will talk a little bit about long view transitions. If you look at Bangladesh now, it's in the midst of 4 critical transitions: urbanization, industrialization, demographics, and technology. Our urban population, since we became independent, has increased more than 6-folds. Demography, you already know the story, a lot of young people. Technology, mobile connectivity has transformed the society, and industrialization. Among the developing country, Bangladesh has developed a decent, I would say, almost respectable industrial base. Yes, they're mostly in garments, but still, it's a sizable industrial base for a developing country. All these four transitions are not unique to Bangladesh. They are taking place in most of the emerging market countries and many developing countries. It's more of a global phenomenon. It's nothing unique. What is unique to Bangladesh is our population density. It's the density that transitions. They're amplifying a lot of this transition that's taking place in Bangladesh. And it's the density that helped us had a lot of these social innovations in the 1970s and 80s. And it's also because of the densities, a lot of opportunities will open up. It creates markets easily, it makes distribution easier, it also amplifies a lot of bottlenecks. Those of us who are trying to leverage technology and participate in the economic process, delivery of the services, we have to leverage this. Now, a unique feature of not all quite unique, but a healthy feature of Bangladesh's economy, if you take a long view of the last 5 decades, Bangladesh's economic progress has steadily moved up. It's a lot of us are experiencing in the last 2 decades, but this transition, I would see it more of as a continuity of successes in the previous decades compared to where we were. Now, especially in the last 2 decades, those of you who are in the room, you have seen a lot of these transitions much more visibly, partly because a lot of the urban changes accumulated in the last 2 decades. And it's also in the last 2 decades, the economy weathered a lot of shocks, both at home and abroad. And the growth rate, 6%, 7%, which is quite a respectable growth rate when it comes to cross-country, also took place in the last 2 decades. Now, this growth, in some respect, not to take away credit, because of the low base, we helped. What I take away from a lot of this growth was very bottom-up. It was bottom-up from agriculture, the remittance that the NRBs sent, and the manufacturing base. So they were quite job-rich. Social innovations combined with this bottom-up growth helped the improvement of human development indicators. I won't go into all those human development indicators. For me, what captures our big transitions is the improvement in life expectancy. It's now over 70, 73, right? Another feature, an outcome of this bottom-up growth process is Bangladesh has done relatively well in managing inequality. This panel shows you that this is one crude measure of inequality that looks into the consumption. Compared to the early decades, Bangladesh's inequality improved in the first 20-25 years. And then the last 10-15 years, it weakened a little bit. But compared to the other countries, the performance is something to be happy about. Again, not to be complacent about, but to be happy about. In Bangladesh, managing inequality is extremely critical. I think the NRBs played a very important role in sending remittances. A lot of the financial remittances that helped keep the inequality in check. Now, looking at investment from a macro picture, if you look at Bangladesh's savings rate, our savings are not too low. In fact, compared to other countries, even bit more countries with higher per capita income, Bangladesh savings rate is quite high. A lot of this also, I would say that because of the NRBs, because of the high remittance and the bottom-up growth, our savings rate has been high. More than finance, where the NRBs can play a role, is in the knowledge, looking forward. Knowledge and also skills and the technology. How can the NRBs get engaged in Bangladesh? But before answering that question, I want to look into what has been the nature of growth. This is based on the latest economic census. If you look at growth in Bangladesh, it has been in trade and in manufacturing. And a lot of the enterprises are quite young, in the cottage, smaller industries. What makes Bangladesh's growth resilient is not only the some of the sectoral diversification, but also the nature of the growth is that the urban, lot of the growth in Bangladesh has been driven by non-urban entities. And if you look at the amount of enterprises in Bangladesh, very similar like to our demography, our economic entities are also quite young. 80% of the economic entities are only 10, 15 years old, and that's what we need to nurture looking ahead. The macro story of Bangladesh is quite well told. Yes, the world views us with the lens that's not been updated in 20 years, but that's nothing unique. Global perceptions are often sticky, and when we were born in the 1970s, we were the poster child for disasters, right? My own view is that let's keep working on making improvements at the field level, and the perceptions will catch up. Perceptions are not asset prices. They tend to be sticky and backward looking. So I won't worry a lot on perception. Let's brand ourselves, let's target ourselves, but let's also keep the right perspectives. The unique feature of coming back to the economic perception, the reason Bangladesh's growth story is being picked up because of the social development, but also the steady nature of growth, that the growth has taken place without sacrificing macro stability. In fact, if you look at Bangladesh's macroeconomy, this is a crowded chart. It shows Bangladesh's rate, compared to the similarly rated peers, Bangladesh on several macro indicators represents a macro stability at a level far compared to other rating peers. But when you're dealing at a real investment, you don't look at these macro indicators. You look at the individual, whether you're getting electricity supply, whether you are getting the right finances, whether you're getting the right cooperation. Again, the challenge becomes the weakest link in the long chain. Looking ahead for Bangladesh, we need to disrupt, but at the end of the day, we need to create a lot of manufacturing jobs. And here lies the challenge. How do you create a lot of manufacturing job when the technology is transforming the manufacturing? And here is a chart which shows quite a bit of our large labor pool with the cost competitive advantages. But this does not take into account of the productivity. Here the panel shows, the left panel shows Bangladesh's total cost in manufacturing per worker. The right panel shows productivity for the mid-skilled workers. So with 1/6 of Chinese labor cost, Bangladesh's productivity is 80%. Again, this is a McKinsey study concentrated on RMG sector. So on a very basic skills, we have done a decent job, but mid-skill to upper mid-skills, and that's where the big challenge will be for us. How much can we benefit from China's rebalancing? This is a very difficult question to answer looking into 10 years. Looking back at the last 10 years, Bangladesh roughly captured 1/3 of the labor-intensive space vacated by China, roughly. Now, that's mostly concentrated in RMG. Yes, the right panel shows that China has occupies a large space in the labor-intensive manufacturing. We have to actively capture this. We have to participate in the East Asian and actually the Asian supply chain. Now, this China's vacating this market space will open up the portions of the growth of demand. That's the export sector. That's the manufacturing side. That needs to be combined with the services, where a lot of you are actively participating, whether to export or to domestically disrupt. But the sad news is that in non-RMG manufacturing, we have not done a very good job. I remember in 2005 and 6, at that time I was working on Vietnam. In Vietnam, with a short time span, moved up into the electronics sector very quickly. We are still hesitating in sort of moving into the auto electronics in that space. But for a job, technological disruptions can help, but we will need to supplement that with a very strong emphasis on manufacturing. This is a slightly bit of a depressing chart. It shows FDI relative to GDP compared to other East Asian countries. Select one. Now, Laos, couple of hydropower projects, it does not reflect. Here, the most useful comparator is Vietnam. And if you look at the East Asian during their takeoff, they attracted 4% of GDP. We need to do a far better job in attractive investment in this manufacturing sector. Those of you who are into the service sector, I really believe what's unique about Bangladesh, we have to leverage our density. Here I show a very simple chart. What I have called the word density dividend. It's a very simple way to look at GDP per square miles. And Bangladesh far outstrips most other things. And there lies both the opportunities when it comes to delivery of health services, aggregating marketing, aggregating markets, technology, education. This density will be the key driving source of innovation for Bangladesh. On the other hand, this density also means huge bottlenecks, how we handle infrastructure, how we take care of nature, environment actually. Compared to many other, we don't have the luxury to make China's mistakes when they took off manufacturing takeoff. And this also has deep social implications for us, how we manage as a society, how we develop an identity, common heritage, because this society can also be very fragile in a crowded environment. And a lot of us will need to focus on how to manage, nurture, harness, and navigate this density. And here I would urge all of you to take part and think through and sort of create disruptive innovation that can leverage. Let me summarize the economic story. The bottom-up story has been in Bangladesh is well told, well understood. The challenge has been on the top-down level. That's where there is increasing realization, but we need to do a much better job, not just only on the private sector, but also on the private, actually also quite a bit on the public sector. Then again, I will go back to the traffic analogy, this how we navigate our traffic in Bangladesh. Growth-wise, we need to leverage both the domestic demand with the $250 billion economy. That's bigger than now in Vietnam's Pakistan, 3 times bigger than Myanmar or Cambodia. This density of economic activity we need to leverage both for the domestic demand, and there is no substitute to the export. And I think the government public sector has a big role to play, but we cannot do it alone. We all need to do it together. I would go back and urge all of us, those of us who are living in Bangladesh, who are coming and visiting as NRB, let's look at Bangladesh with a lot of curiosity, patience, not with the sunglasses that we have going back. It's a very large country. NRBs, we tend to see things from a very narrow lens. That's both a strength, but also a challenge. But times are ripe that we all can mutually benefit from each other's cooperation and participation. Thank you very much.